My hands were shaking the moment I saw her, our HOA president, unlocking my front door like she owned the place. She didn't live here, she had no right, but there she was, bold as daylight, stepping into my house. And when she called the cops, so sure she'd finally destroyed me, she had no idea what was waiting when my wife answered the door. In full police uniform. Act 1. The conflict ignites. I'm Patrick Bryant. I'm a veteran, been through enough to think I'd seen it all. Turns out I hadn't. After my father, Colonel James Bryant, passed nearly 3 decades ago, I built a small memorial garden for him in the backyard. Nothing fancy. Roses, lilies, a simple stone marker. It mattered to me because it had mattered to him. It was his peace after Vietnam. And then came Kimberly Hall. Picture your stereotypical Karen with too much power, perfect hair, clipboard in hand, walking around like the queen of the block. She was our HOA president, and trust me, she loved reminding everyone of that fact. One morning she marched straight across my lawn waving papers like she was serving justice. "Mr. Bryant, you're in violation of health codes. That backyard memorial is unauthorized." I almost laughed until she dropped something that froze me. She mentioned my father's unit firebase, Charlie 1968. That was classified. Even I struggled to get records unsealed for family history. How in the hell does an HOA president know that? From that moment, I knew this wasn't just a petty HOA spat. This woman had access to things she should not know. And she was smiling while threatening me with $15,000 in fines. Act 2. Escalation and doubt. The deeper I looked, the darker it got. One night my computer went black while I was pulling up county permit records right as I opened my dad's old application for cemetery space. When the system came back online, the file was gone, deleted in real time while I was looking at it. That's not HOA power, that's government-level access. Then Janet Martinez, the HOA secretary, called me in a panic. We met in a coffee shop, no electronics allowed. She slid me a folder with shaking hands. Inside, floor plans of my house marked in red, surveillance photos of my yard, and a detailed file on my dad's military service way, more detailed than anything I'd ever seen. Kimberly wasn't just flexing HOA rules. She was running a coordinated operation targeting veteran families for their military memorabilia. I felt sick, but I also thought maybe I'm losing it. Maybe I'm just a paranoid vet reading too much into HOA nonsense. That doubt ate at me, and then came the public humiliation. At the next HOA meeting, I stood up with my evidence ready to expose Kimberly. But before I could finish my first sentence, a slick lawyer jumped up, claimed I'd broken into confidential files, that none of my evidence was admissible. And just like that, Janet, terrified, was forced to testify against me. Everything I had collapsed. The local news spun it like wildfire. Disturbed veteran harasses HOA president. Kimberly even gave an interview, eyes-watering, saying she felt threatened by my militant behavior. Neighbors looked at me like I was a ticking time bomb. I remember sitting alone that night asking myself, am I crazy? Did I just throw my reputation away chasing ghosts? For a moment I wanted to quit. Just rip out the garden, pay the fine, crawl back into silence. But then Rachel, my wife, my anchor, slammed her badge on the table. She'd been digging too. Detective Webb had uncovered police databases being hacked, veteran records pulled, financial data stolen. It wasn't in my head. It was real. And then the FBI showed up. Agent Victoria Hayes walked in with a folder thicker than a phone book. She laid out photos of 12 other neighborhoods across the country. Same story. New HOA president, veteran families targeted, priceless metals stolen. Kimberly was part of a national trafficking ring. I wasn't crazy, I was a target. Act 3. The showdown. Weeks later, the sting was set. Federal surveillance blanketed our block. Kimberly, desperate and cornered, made her move. I'll never forget it. 9 in the morning. Broad daylight, she marched right up to my house carrying a leather bag. Didn't bother hiding. She picked the lock like she'd practiced 100 times and walked in as if she owned the place. Federal agents tracked her every step, but she thought she was untouchable. She even called police dispatch from inside my home reporting suspicious activity like she'd just stumbled upon evidence. Her plan was simple: plant stolen metals in my basement frame me once and for all and walk away the hero. But when she opened that basement door expecting an empty safe, she froze. Because there I was sitting at a table covered in evidence files. Rachel stood beside me in full uniform, arms crossed, and behind her FBI agents, cameras rolling, every word, every breath recorded. For the first time, the mask slipped. Kimberly's face twisted from arrogance to shock, then to pure panic. "What? How did you?" she stammered. Agent Hayes stepped forward, cuffs in hand. "Kimberly Hall, you're under arrest for conspiracy, trafficking, stolen military artifacts, breaking and entering, wire fraud, and about 20 other charges." The moment was electric. Months of her smug smiles shattered in an instant. But just as the cuffs clicked, she leaned in, her eyes burning into mine, and she whispered loud enough for the microphones, "You still don't know how your father really died, do you? Ask Bill Thompson about November 15th, 1995. That wasn't a heart attack." The entire room froze. Rachel's jaw clenched. Agent Hayes stopped mid-sentence. Because what Kimberly had just said wasn't public. It was classified. My father's death, the thing I'd lived with for nearly 30 years, suddenly ripped wide open. And before I could demand more, she was hauled out, still smirking like she'd detonated the biggest bomb yet. Closing line, message. That's the thing about bullies who hide behind power. They always think they've won, right up until the second justice slams the door shut.